Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Our guest today is Shilpa Garg, technical writer at Workday. So welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, Shilpa. How are you doing today?
Hi, Gauri. I'm doing well. Thank you. We are among COVID, so we are all doing as well as we can be, but I'm glad to be here.
Fantastic. Yeah. So stay safe. And so I would like to understand a little bit more about yourself, Shilpa, and how long you've been in documentation or as a technical writer. How did you initially get into documentation, please?
So, Gauri, I have been a technical writer for about 5 years now. And I used to be in the world of analytics. I have done data analytics, business intelligence, data warehousing, big data, all of that. That used to be my world. And then when my kids were very young, I took a short break. And I used to teach part-time to school, middle school and high school students. I've always taught, even in the corporate setting in my college days. I enjoy writing. And during that time, I was dabbling in, various things. And I happened to have many technical writers in my circle of friends. And during that time, I got a little bit more detailed peek into what they would be doing. And I thought this was a really nice amalgam of things that my skill set brought, and I wanted to give this a try. So when I decided to go back to work full time, I switched my careers and I haven't looked back. I have been really enjoying being a technical writer.
That's great. So what is your documentation process at Workday, and who do you normally get involved in it, Shilpa?
So at Workday, documentation, it's like a large ecosystem. We have the dev teams on one side and each writer on our team. We have about more than 100 writers at Workday, by the way. And each writer is very integrated with the teams that they support. And that includes the product owners, the QA, the development, and you're part of every single meeting. You're like, the little ghosts that shadow them for everything. We're involved with the UI text and any kind of help documentation. We do release notes. We do a variety of content. We have patch notes, which are different from release notes because they just specifically talk to bugs. And then we have many other forms of documentation that we provide to our customers. So we will work with our dev teams. They'll attend all the scrums. It's an agile environment. And then on the other end, we have the writer ecosystem where we have the support of other writers. We have editors who make sure that we maintain the quality of documentation and that all the documentation has one voice. Anytime you write anything, we go through peer reviews, we go through editorial reviews, and we in fact have something that I really like about Workday is a complete doc QA day before we publish anything. Very similar to what a dev team would have. And that really ensures that our documents are in sync and they're error-free. And the way we communicate with customers, we have a central place called community. So it's not open to public in general, but if you're a Workday customer, you access the community. And we kind of push everything through that platform to communicate with customers.
Fantastic. So in terms of content strategy, what are some of the documentation content strategies you have in place at Workday?
So one of the content strategies that Workday has is we want to keep the overhead involved in documentation to the minimum, which means we provide documentation that are at a higher level and they cater to the administrators of Workday users, and then they create their own documentation off of that. So we write to a more technical person, whoever that would be in your organization, to set up the systems. And then we do not have like screenshots in our documentation because there's language, involved in that. There is screenshots become obsolete. So we have those kind of things. So we refrain from that. And then we provide other forms, which is something I'm trying to think how it would be explained in German terminology. It's basically, we have a post, we call it a post, that goes out with complex feature updates, which are very technical and detailed, and a customer can pretty much run it, print it and run with it. Then we also have videos that our product owners post and kind of have the users walk through that. We also have field readiness, who create a lot of additional documentation to support our documentation. And all of those things provide customers everything they need as a whole, but then it keeps the overhead on the writer's part to the minimum.
Fantastic. So that's great. So in terms of important factors, what do you consider when creating documentation?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
So the important factors, what are your main factors or important factors you consider when creating your documentation, Shilpa?
Yeah, there's a few factors we consider at Workday. One is, and because it's a SaaS environment and it's cloud-based delivery, we give our users a preview window to make sure they have an opportunity to test out any changes that are coming their way. Then our release notes are done kind of differently. They're very, very detailed, and it gives a very good picture of what the update on a product feature is about, as well as you can run a report within Workday for any particular release to say, okay, if I am in a certain version of Workday, what's happening here? And that really gives a lot of power to the user in their hands, and they can just figure things out from one version to the other, depending on whatever they are in their environment. And we also make sure that we deliver docs with each feature update, which means not only release notes, but also any other additional detailed guides and documentation so that our customers have no surprises and they're in sync.
Fantastic. So in terms of workload reduction, have you seen any reduction since introducing quality documentation?
So Workday has a lot of metrics to track various things. And of course, they track, how a customer is using our documentation. But we mainly rely on the feedback that comes to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I don't really have specific numbers to share with you, but in the bi-weekly calls that we sit in, with data with support and services team and other places, we see that the issues that customers are talking about are not so much due to lack of having documentation around them. And I'm hoping that that's, a sign of having quality documentation out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it's a tricky question to answer because you can't really say the support tickets have reduced or inquiries have decreased from the customer directly relating to documentation, right? But if you have any metrics or if you are measuring something, then it's a good point to take forward here.
Yeah, our management takes that seriously. And as I was saying, that Workday has a lot of different metrics to track and measure things to make sure that our customers are happy. And that's something that Workday really excels at. So we keep a tight eye on it, but I don't have exact numbers to share to say, the workload reduces from X to Z. That's hard to kind of capture.
No worries at all. So, just remind me: is the documentation at WorkDoc, is that a public one or a private one, Shilpa?
It's a private one. If you're a customer of Workday, you have access to everything that we have out there. But if you are just third party looking into some Workday documentation, it's not open to general public.
Okay, so in that sense, am I correct in guessing that you are not generating any organic search traffic from your knowledge base?
Yes, I mean, we are not whatever is internal. So when a customer comes to our internal community, which is kind of think like a big Google out there, but within Workday ecosystem, yes, they can search so many different things that are out there, and that includes discussions and brainstorms and whatnot. But yeah, not outside, no organic search on a regular engine.
That's absolutely fine. And so I think we are about to go into our rapid fire round. Is there anything else you would like to add before the rapid fire round questions, Shilpa?
No, I mean, this is, pretty much what, yeah, I don't have anything additional.
No problem, no problem. So let's jump on to the rapid fire round now. Who have you learned the most about documentation from in your career?
Wow, that has been actually quite a few people, from the very first person who kind of got me interested into technical writing, if you want to say, including, up to my first job. There have been some people who were quite influential in, having me learn all the basics, like documentation 101. And then to my current job, where so many things have been shaped in terms of how can we make sure docs are up to quality? How can we be consistent? How can we be minimalistic? So I would say there have been a many set of people who have impacted me in my journey. And at different points in time, it has been different set of people. I have had a very close family friend of mine, who was the first person who really got me excited about documentation. And then when I was at Cisco, I had somebody who was very, meaningful to me in whatever I learned from day one. And then currently at Workday, I have several people who have impacted in, how I document.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I'm sure you might be reading a lot of books and a lot of materials out in the web. So can you share a documentation related resource you have consumed recently?
So yes, I read quite a bit. I run a book day club at my work, but specific to documentation, I read this blog by Tom Johnson. It's called I Would Rather Be Writing, and I really like what he offers out there. So I, periodically go and check out what's happening out there. He's got many variety of different areas of documentation that he speaks to. Another place I constantly go and reference is STC, the Society for Technical Communications. I wouldn't say there's one specific book, but these are my more frequent go-to places to kind of see what's happening out there.
Super. So I'm sure you might have heard this episode as well.
Yes, I think you guys are there as well. Your podcast is on there for sure.
Yeah, super. So what is that one piece of documentation related advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Well, I started kind of pretty late, but what I would say is that to be a successful technical writer, it's important to be organized, but it's also important to be curious. I feel that's a big part of technical writing, that you want to be curious, you want to learn things, you want to be able to get your hands dirty and not be afraid of it. it's okay. I mean, it's good. It's a good thing if you want to go test things out, especially if you're in a software space. And also, it's very important you understand what is the content strategy of your organization, what is their, writing style, and you adapt to it quickly. So I think, being young, it opens up to so many opportunities out there for you, and never be afraid. Just go with it.
Super. So that's
understand
great.
Who your audience is. That's another big part. Make sure you understand who you're writing for.
That's great. So I think the last 20 minutes or so, you have shared quite a lot of valuable information, especially how you structure the process around documentation and content strategy. So that's really nice to know. I think we've reached the end of the episode. Any final words regarding this participation in the podcast you would like to highlight, Shilpa?
I just wanted to thank you, Gauri, for having me here. And I also wanted to say that what you're doing to me is very unique and amazing, because it really brings us writers, it gives us actually an opportunity to peek into different organizations and how they're approaching, their content and what are they doing to provide quality content, which is a conversation that we don't normally have access to on such a large scale, having such a variety of people from different parts, different types of companies, I would say rather. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa, for participating in this episode, and many other guests who's already done their series. So I think the credit should all go equally to you all as well, because all we are doing is just bringing the platform, and then your participation, your preparation to such episodes is highly appreciated. So thank you once again for taking your time with us today, and I hope this episode gets a good audience count to you. And keep safe and stay indoors.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Based Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.